In this, our second series, we welcome members of the Movement for Health Coalition to showcase the work achieved by Scotland's charity sector, supporting people with long-term health conditions to move, celebrate their movement, and evidence the need for more investment.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast recording for Movement in Conversation. I am delighted to be joined today by Doug Anthony from Age Scotland. Doug is a health and wellbeing manager there and an active member of the Movement for Health Coalition. Doug, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
That's lovely. Thanks. Doug, I've been asking people in this series, so this series is about getting to know our membership better, the organisations that make up the coalition. So if we could start by a little bit of an introduction around Age Scotland as an organisation, please, and then we'll get into the more of the detail around the health and wellbeing work.
Age Scotland, Scotland's older people's charity. So our aim is to make Scotland as good a place as possible to grow old in, and to make sure everyone can get the best possible experience they can out of later life. So we have a range of services. So we have an information helpline, which is available on 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, where people can call for information and advice about a range of topics, from care to benefits and so on, and housing. We have a suite of, I think, around about 80 information guides, which we have available now online on a range of topics, and we post out paper copies to the many older people who either can't use the internet or prefer just to have something in their hands to read, and their families, friends and carers as well. We have various specialist projects. So I work in the health and wellbeing team, which I'll tell you more about, I'm sure, in a moment. But we also have dedicated projects around diversity and inclusion, older people who've served in the armed forces, and a dementia team as well. So as well as supporting individual older people through our telephony services, our friendship line, and things like connecting them with local activities and opportunities. We also have a membership organisation, and many of our members, in fact most of our members, are older people's community groups and services across the whole country. So we provide things like community development support for them, which can include advice, networking opportunities, small grants, just to develop and grow the range of local accessible opportunities that are out there for older people. And with a health and wellbeing team, that's a key focus. Along with other teams, we provide training and support to help them develop in whatever activities they're developing for older people.
Excellent. Well, let's delve into that a little bit more then, with that health and wellbeing hat on. And what does that look like for people, the older adults in Scotland, health and wellbeing? What main areas are you looking at supporting them with?
So I'm not the only person, and my colleagues in the health and wellbeing team are not the only ones in Age Scotland that are focused on older people's health and wellbeing, and arguably pretty much the entire charity is dedicated to that in one shape or form. So for example, our policy team, our information and advice teams are focused on the issues that the older people maybe can't easily fix on their own, things like housing, money, benefits, and so all these will affect your quality of life in your later years. The bit that I focus on, and my colleagues in the health and wellbeing team, is the things that people have some influence and agency over. So no matter what your age, no matter what your circumstances, you can still do something to move the needle about how well you age, the quality of your aging and your experience and your well-being as you get older. So what we do is make sure we've got the best evidence base about what helps people to age well, or steps they can take for better aging. So quite often people can be fatalistic about that and think, oh, it's down to my genes. Actually, maybe only about 20 to 30% of your aging experience is down to the genes you inherit. Now, some of that is down to things that can't be controlled. For example, if you live in a stressful environment, a polluted environment, of course that's going to impact on your health and well-being as you get older. but a lot of it is down to the way we generally live as a society today, the way that we eat, we move or don't move, the way that we take care of our stresses and strains in our life. So all these things have a big influence on how well we age. And we know that your chronological age, which is the number of candles on your birthday cake, doesn't necessarily match the age of your body, the body organs. You can be older if you than your age in years, or sometimes you can be younger. And a lot of that is down to the way you live your life and the way your daily routines and your habits. So we try and understand, well, what are these things that people can do that they can action quite easily and sustainably in the routines that over time will give them that best possible chance of enjoying that high quality of later years. And we take that knowledge and we try and develop it into resources, materials, support services that help older people to age as well as possible. So some examples would be working with the Open University at the moment and our partner charity Age UK over the border on an exciting initiative starting in May called Take 5 to Age Well, and that's based on 5 areas which the Open University have identified as being key if you want to age well. So looking after your nutrition, your hydration, your physical activity, stimulating your brain, and also making sure you're socially and creatively stimulated and engaged as well. The Take 5 challenge will be an opportunity in May for individual people of whatever age they are, if they're interested in the quality of how well they age, we'll be challenging and supporting them to take a small step in one of these areas, a small change in their daily routine for 30 days over that month of May, with the idea that will hopefully give them a good chance of making that a lifelong habit that will help them improve how they age. So that's just one example of the kind of work we do for individuals. We also collaborate with colleagues in other Age Scotland teams. For example, our information writing team produce a range of guides for older people I mentioned earlier, and some of these are focused on health and well-being. So we connect with our expert friends advisory panel of academic, lived experience and practice experts in health and well-being in later life, and we connect that in with our information teams. So we recently published an update of our popular health and well-being in later life guide, which was much more focused on how you can create new habits that whether you're motivated one day or you're lacking motivation, you could still get in the repetitions of that small change in your behaviour that will give you a better experience of aging.
Excellent, thank you. Excellent examples across the board there of the different pieces of the puzzle that Age Scotland are looking to support in various ways. I'd like to just unpick a couple of things that you said there to just sort of focus in on. You and I are in the same meetings. We're on the same meetings around population health. A lot of talk around the population health at the moment, the burden of disease reports, the CMO guidelines, etc. And with the Physical Activity for Health framework being launched at the end of last year. We talk a lot at the moment about aging population and what that means for the future and what we need to think about now for a growing number of older people living longer. And I really liked the way that you termed people being able to have control and agency around moving the needle, well, I think was the expression that you used, around their own aging, which I think is really powerful. What, in your experience, are you guys thinking of when we're looking at aging populations of the future and this? We talk in Movement for Health about movement being a very preventative part of the puzzle. For some people to live well in later life, we want people to move more earlier in life and potentially for their life cycle. I just wonder what sort of thinking and conversations that Age Scotland is having at the moment around that.
Yeah, so absolutely that's a focus. That's the big context is we do have an ageing population.
Sure.
We very much view that as an opportunity, not a threat.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a success story in many ways that we've an aging population. People are living longer, and yes, there are now some worrying concerns about slowdown in life expectancy, and also critically the gap between your lifespan and your health span on average across the population. More people are living a longer period of their later years in poor health. So that's the kind of thing we want to change. It's not the message we would put out to individual older people yet necessarily, because lots and lots of research, Emma, as I'm sure you're aware of, it doesn't really play well. People guilting you by saying, "Oh, you're part of that demographic time bomb," or you're going to be a burden. That, who wants to hear that?
No.
Nobody wants to hear that. So what we focus on instead is trying to create opportunities for older people, for example, around physical activity, to enjoy it, enjoy the moment. We have games resources which we've developed, which are software based in the main, but they can actually be used without the software for people who are a little bit more experienced in leading them. And one's called Body Boosting Bingo. We launched a new version of that last year. The other one is called Power Quiz, which, as they suggest, one's based on a bingo game and one's based on a quiz game. And these games resources include a kind of audio-visual experience. There's demonstration videos with the new bingo game with older models, demonstrating movements that promote strength and balance, which we know are critically important for a healthy, happy later life, but which, if you don't tend to, will kind of decline from midlife onwards. And it's about creating a bit of fun, a bit of a laugh. It's a little bit silly at times, and it's also critically social. So this resource is something that we provide training to multiple settings, NHS settings, care homes, day centres, just activity clubs for older people, where we train and provide the resources free, and the group would just need to have some way of displaying it audio-visually themselves, which could be on a laptop or a computer with a screen or a smart TV. And they can then lead the games directly with the participants, and we're getting some great feedback on it. People find it a laugh. It makes it social. It makes it about fun, and for some people a little bit of a competitive element to it is motivational as well. So it's been going. The games that we provide, we've been going for a few years now, since about 2018. We're refining them, we're developing them, we're refining the support, the training we provide. And I think that's an example of the experience we hope for the people who are playing the games, is that they can move around to some fun music. It's a laugh, it's with their peers. Sometimes it can be intergenerational as well. And it gives them that well-being buzz now, and I think that's a key message. So I think what is really good news when you're talking about health and well-being and how well you age is the things that would give you a better chance of that kind of long life, also help you enjoy the now, the moment. If you move your muscles, your brain will be experiencing chemicals that will just give you that kind of high, that give you a buzz. If you're doing something with other people, you get that social connection. You don't need to touch all these bases in isolation. You could attend an older person's group where you get that massive benefit from engaging with other people, having fun, reducing stress, moving your body. All of that helps you live well in the now. And I think that's really important, because there are no guarantees. You could follow all the health advice and, drop dead next week, or you could do lots of things that are wrong and live a long life. There are no guarantees, as the research and the evidence is generally studies over very, very large groups of people, sometimes whole populations. They just look at trends and likelihoods. They don't offer any guarantees. But what we can guarantee is that people do these things, they will have a good time, by and large. Most people will have fun. They will connect with others. They will enjoy the moment, do something silly, something funny. And what we find with older people's clubs and groups is that they, very often when Age Scotland colleagues, not just my team but others we visit, we're there as guests in someone's club or group where they just want to have fun. They're just getting together to chew the fat and enjoy themselves. And they don't want someone coming in necessarily and being serious and worthy and, finger wagging at them about their health and so on. So it's really about, yes, the bigger context is important if you're trying to provide that support. And you don't want to hide it. So there are some people who will be interested in reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes or cancer or dementia, whatever it is. They're probably already seeking out that information anyway. If you want to reach the people who wouldn't normally look out for that information, you need to take a slightly different approach.
Mm-hmm. Just really mirrors a lot of the conversations we've had in these podcasts around communications and your audience and who you're speaking to, and that appropriate timing and language to use when you're trying to have a meaningful impact and connection with someone to support their health and well-being, I think is really key. I have been a participant in many body boosting bingo sessions myself, and I can concur that it is very fun. I've never not had fun, and I have been one of the more competitive end of that scale, I would suggest, as well. But thank you for sharing that. Body boosting bingo is and Power Quiz are wonderful examples of bringing real fun but for the fun being the focus of movement, which I think your experience with older adults would mirror some of my own with that not necessarily concentrating on the science and not necessarily concentrating on the bigger picture stuff and really understanding what motivates a group or an individual isn't necessarily what we're working on in the background. So I think that's really key. I wanted to touch on something. I was in a meeting just this morning actually where loneliness and isolation was being chatted about. It was a pastoral meeting. We were talking about the Health Walk Network and how that supports people's social health and connectedness within their own peer groups and communities and things. And I very much see the work of Age Scotland and others. I think maybe we don't talk about it enough, actually, that the work that we do contributes so much towards people's social and mental health and well-being. I think a lot of us get sort of put into sort of physical activity silos almost of, this is the physical activity program that we have over here. Actually, I see so much of our work, especially when we're talking about moving more, movement being active rather than exercise referral pathways and that kind of that other next step perhaps for some. Actually, I think it is the mental and the social parts that we can have the biggest impact in. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, because I know that
Absolutely.
Age Scotland looks at addressing that isolation and loneliness very much so.
Yes, so it's a big issue for us. It's something we campaign about. We have a friendship service linked to our telephone helpline, where we provide friendship calls for people who are feeling down and isolated, because we found that quite often people would contact the helpline with ostensibly another problem, but then once the conversation progressed, it would become clear that that person was maybe quite isolated. We've got a community connecting service that will do more than just sign people to a list of local activities in their area. They will have volunteers who, if the person wishes, will provide that kind of follow-up telephone support and maybe broker the introductions, because it's very easy if you get given a contact number and you haven't been involved in a club or a group for some time, you can lose your confidence, and just having someone to kind of be by your side, even over the phone, to kind of help you make that first step. Sometimes that's the biggest thing, is just going over the door of that new group. So yes, absolutely, it's something Age Scotland's very, very interested in. You may be familiar with the Harvard Study of Human Development. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's something that very much has struck me as this massive study that started in the 1930s with groups of young men and boys in Boston. Some were very privileged, some were underprivileged, and tracked them and their descendants over generations, and it's still going today. So one of the, perhaps I think the biggest finding out of that was regardless of how well someone started in life or what job they did or their education, actually it's the quality of the relationships which was the biggest predictor of whether they're going to enjoy a healthy, happy, long life. And there's a number of reasons for that, and it seems that the researchers there think that part of it is to do with reducing that stress in life and kind of easing the kind of challenges of life. But also, if you have good quality relations, it seems you're more likely to do the other things you value yourself enough to look after your body and move and to eat well. So absolutely critical. It's not just a separate thing. It's and when one of the things that we would do with older people's groups, and we provide training to professionals as well on supporting older people to age well. But when we're doing that more holistic training or health workshop with older people, we do focus on things like finding your purpose, finding your motivation. If you lose purpose in life, then that's gonna, you won't have anything to look forward to. You won't have that motivation to look after yourself. Can be a sign that things are going to go downhill pretty quickly for you after that. So finding ways, I think if we can encourage people to find the fun, find the purpose, find the meaning. If you can be active through volunteering, that's great. That can bring the social, the physical movement, all these things. Find ways of not necessarily doing everything in isolation, but you can through, for example, volunteering or in an outdoor project. In my community, for example, they've got a local In Bloom group where people get together to tend plants and flowers and make the neighbourhood look beautiful. And that kind of activity where people are active, they're social, they're purposeful, they're in nature, they're improving the community. Wow, that's a whole package.
Amazing. That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And that got me thinking in my head to some of the work that I had done within our sort of dementia-friendly program at Pass for All when I started with the organisation in care homes. And that you said earlier about intergenerational activities. And I think that some of those things that we were involved with were about like improving the environment, like the physical environment, or making it more accessible to move in. But actually the whole process was about moving more and joining up the care community more together and taking ownership and advocacy. And I feel like we need to get out of these thinking about being physically active or moving more in isolation, as you said, as its own thing, because it can have it bridges so many different tick boxes, if you like, things that you can get all of that good stuff for you as an individual as you age out of that movement activity. For example, the In Bloom group is a really lovely example of that. Is intergenerational work done specifically within the health and wellbeing work that you do within Age Scotland? Is that a particular work stream, or is it something that's sort of knitted throughout in different opportunities?
No, it's not specifically, but I mentioned earlier we have an expert friends advisory panel that guides us, and one of the members is Generations Working Together, which is the intergenerational charity in Scotland, and they're working together. They do tremendous work. So, because there's that discrete charity, we partner with them, we collaborate with them, but they would take the lead. But certainly there have been examples of, for example, Body Boosting Bingo Game, which has been intergenerational, and if you're involving particularly younger, very small children, they're learning their numbers as they interact with older adults. It can be a win-win situation. So yeah, we see plenty of potential for that, and we do talk about the value of intergenerational connection. But I think there's one of the things in the health and wellbeing sphere, as Emma, is it's lots of organisations wanting to be active in this area. We need to make sure that we all play to our strengths and collaborate where it's going to add value. But if someone else is doing it well, why would we step on their toes?
Absolutely, absolutely. Generations working together do excellent work. Wonderful to see that partnership approach throughout. That's excellent. What are some of the challenges or barriers to people being active in older in our later years? I have some thoughts at some things around risk and sort of being risk averse to move in case of X, Y, and Z. People thinking about falls prevention and things like that. So I'm just wondering about what, from your experience, that looks like in terms of the barriers or challenges that people might be facing.
Well, if I'm wanting to find out more about the barriers, I'd look at the Excellent Movement for Health website. You've done all the homework.
Thank you, Dan.
You've done the homework for us, which is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think there are all barriers. We some people had a terrible experience of gym when they were at school and that kind of thing. Just last
the PE paralysis.
PE paralysis. It is changing now. I think. There's less perception now that retirement is the time to put your feet up, pipe and slippers kind of thing. And people are, as they enter older age, are more of them are more active. There's some great examples. There's a chap in my community who. So this is a few weeks back. I was marshalling at a local 10K run in the dark. So people charging around the countryside in the dark, and this chap is 83 years old and he was doing the 10K with a head torch on, and he wasn't the last person to come over the line. And I was chatting to this guy, and he's just so full of enthusiasm and motivation. I think we're trying to encourage people to be more active. We're up against our way of life. Everything's more convenient, and it's natural to take the shortcuts. If you've got stairs and escalators. I was listening to a podcast myself earlier, was talking about research studies that have been done that show only 5% of people would ever, in different cultures and different countries, take the stairs.
Really?
95% of people take 95% of people take the escalator, and that's because we're evolved to conserve energy. It makes no sense if you're in hunter-gatherer times, thousands of years ago. It makes no sense to waste your energy going for a jog or going to the gym.
Sure.
You're using enough energy just feeding yourself and keeping warm. So it's not, modern life takes away the necessity to move and to keep our brains active, our food is provided in a very appealing package format that very often is not good for us. So all of these things are you have to kind of go against the grain in a way to age well. And I think the challenge for us is to inject that purpose, that fun and the meaning into activities so they become more appealing. We can't blame people, I think, for not being active or not looking after themselves when there are some incredibly clever people marketing and designing products and designing environments that reduce the opportunities and motivation for us to age well.
What about access to digital engagement with physical activity and movement? I was thinking about this earlier when you were saying about, obviously you've got, what was it, around 80 info guides, and you have things in printed form for people that would prefer that or cannot access things online. I'm just wondering about the offers that we have for people. We were doing a podcast with Kieran from Change Mental Health a couple of days ago, and we talked about digital poverty and that being an issue, and within our geographical locations, especially in a lot of rural locations, perhaps where actually that connectivity isn't there yet.
Yes.
Or all the skills or knowledge rather about, it isn't a case of just giving someone tech, it's how do they use it. And is that something that Age Scotland has looked at or is thinking about when you're looking at the health and wellbeing offering
Yes,
to people.
yeah. So also, it's an area that East Scotland's got a very big interest into. More and more older people are online and enjoying it and getting benefits from it, but there are still plenty of people who can't or don't use it or don't have the confidence, don't have the skills, don't have the resources, the money, or maybe concerned that understandably that they're going to be open to scammers and people who could, there's a bit of a Wild West element out there. So yes, that's a massive area. So an example of how we're addressing that. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We do provide digital products, but the body boosting bingo, for example, is something that's provided in an in-person environment. So yes, there needs to be someone ideally who can display it and lead the game, but the people who are participating don't need to be online to do that. And actually, even if they're someone who's an experienced game leader, we've got a way of playing it with the booklet and the 30-sided dice. You don't need to have the full tech. So we're trying to create these options and these opportunities. And when we were developing the new version, the new edition of Body Boosting Bingo, we collaborated with a project called Gold, Generating Older Active Lives Digitally, which is Stirling University and Plymouth University, and they produced some excellent guidelines for developers of digital resources to encourage and support more movement in older populations. So that's one example. Another one would be just that kind of thinking through whenever there's a new opportunity is, who will it include, who could be potentially excluded. So Take 5 to Age Well is a really good example of that. So the challenge first ran on a UK level in the autumn of 2023. And when I got involved in collaborating with the Open University, I was really key that, yes, you've got this wonderful online digital engagement where people can sign up for the challenge online and receive motivational tips and information throughout the period of May for their challenge. That's great. If you're online, it's wonderful. But for people who aren't online, they're excluded. So one of the things we piloted in the first run of Take 5 to Age Well Challenge is the idea of working with our community groups, encouraging them to sign up as a group to Take 5, and we would provide paper-based resources for groups to participate in the challenge. And we'll be doing this again this year, so we're offering older people's clubs, groups and services, but also extending the offer to workplaces, to even a group of friends in a community who want to get together to explore health and wellbeing topics. So we are making available a paper-based pack for them to explore these 5 key health topics together, and maybe decide that they want to make individual or even a group change, which if they do that as a group, we'd allow a longer period. So that's something that we're trying to make sure that there's going to be an inclusive angle for people who can come together through groups. And it's great if some people in that group are online. It makes that a lot easier, but not everybody would need to be, and it means it's more inclusive.
Excellent. Thank you. And something just popped into my head there, Doug, around do you have like a panel of people that sort of advise and support and test when you're looking at sort of designing programs and projects or activities like the body boosting bingo and things? Do you have like a group of people, of older people that will sort of advise and test and sort of give feedback on these things?
So we do that on a kind of case-by-case basis. I mentioned our expert friends advisory panel. We have some older people on that who have a kind of informed interest in health and well-being. For example, one of our members teaches exercise classes in our community, another's a retired GP. So we bring that in. But when we're testing out, we're developing a new resource, we will, get the input of our expert advisors, but we would also road test it with older people in community settings just to get their feedback. And and see, is it working for them? Is it something that would be a benefit? Can we improve it? Can we change it? So that piloting, that kind of co-production, I guess, is a jargon these days.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's important to do. We don't want to waste our time and energy producing materials and resources that are not going to be a benefit. So the kind of piloting and then the evaluation as you go is critical.
Absolutely. Lovely. Thank you, Doug. Now, you've got your Take 5 to Age Well to expect around May time, was that? May, March?
Yeah,
May.
so the challenge will be starting in May at the moment. If you go into the Age Scotland's website and search for health and wellbeing, you can order, you'll be able to order the pack for groups.
Lovely.
And as of late March, there'll be an opportunity for individuals to sign up through the Open University website to take part in the challenge. And they've got all sorts of cool things like, virtual coaches who can help you through your health and well-being goals.
Cool.
and things like that coming up. So we're very excited to be promoting that. But yes, we're really keen to hear from community groups that would like to take part in the Take 5 challenge now.
Lovely. Well, we'll put a link to that on the podcast blurb as well, so that anyone listening in and is interested can access it that way too. Excellent. Doug, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
It's been a privilege to talk to you, as always, and thank you for your ongoing support for the Movement for Health Coalition. And thank you for listening to Doug today from Age Scotland. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. And if you have, please do listen into the other episodes in this series, Getting to Know Our Members Better. Thank you and goodbye until next time.